And thus, Sonic is back on Nintendo. I like how we seem to be alternating now. Like, Sonic Unleashed was on 360 PS2, PS3. Colors was on a Wii U exclusive. Generations was on 360 PS3. And now this is on the Wii U. It's almost like Nintendo has joint custody or something. Sonic Lost World, the latest, and so far last Sonic game in the franchise. So far, we did it! We finally made it! Starting off right away, just from, like, the intro here and then the little animation we're about to get, this game, like, one thing I would say about this game that's kind of weird is this game doesn't have, like, a main vocal theme, like Colors and Unleashed, and really all previous Sonic games had, so that's a little weird. Like, it's just a little instrumental. It's not, like, obviously it's a Sonic game, so the music is good, but it's just kind of weird to me that there's no vocals. And I don't necessarily know what the reason for that is. I can only speculate. But I think, like, I remember reading in an interview somewhere that maybe this game was sort of rushed. So I think that might have been part of the reason. I mean, Generations was rushed too, and it didn't have a vocal theme, so maybe that's just what happens now. When you rush a Sonic game, no vocals for you. I don't know. But on the other hand, like, I don't want to assume that, because it could have been an intentional creative decision. Because, well, the classic Genesis games don't have vocal themes either. So, we'll get more into that, though. Once again, only one save file for some godforsaken reason. I love this intro. For one thing, looks like Eggman found Orbot and Cubot floating out in space, and the tornado, if you look at it, that's the Tornado 1. That's the same color scheme and design as the Tornado had in the Genesis games in Sonic 2 and 3. That's adorable and awesome, isn't it?
Whoa, that's harsh!
And look, they're chasing a little capsule with the animals in it, just like the Genesis games. I wonder what the inspiration for this game was. Predictable. I love Orbot and Cubot. Whoa! What was the sound effect in Sonic Adventure? Yeah! Whoa!
Whoa! What's that in the clouds?
That must be the Lost Hex!
The what now? It looks like Little Planet shed its skin or something, like a snake. Or maybe, like, it's a planet that, from Lost Wisp, Maybe it's like a planet from Colors, like Planet Wisp that Eggman pulled out of the sky. I don't know, Lost Hex never really gets explained, it's a little weird. So, yeah, first things first, look at how fucking vibrant and colorful this fucking game is. This game looks gorgeous to me. Look at how fucking, like, it's so colorful, it just pops. Like, the art design on this game is fucking flawless. It's so, like, and this is just the first level. They get, like, really creative with the look of the levels later on. Second of all, we have classic Badniks again. Look at these fucking Motobugs. Oh, they're just little Motobugs. Oh no! Even in Generations and Colors, they had like a weird little redesign. They look like how they look in Sonic Boom, like the cartoon. These are straight up classic, pure. Look at how pure and innocent and perfect they are. They are little Motobugs, and I love them. And now they're dead. And look, we popped those Badniks, and little animal buddies popped out of them. Oh no! Look at the little animal buddies popping out. It's just like the good old days. So that's what I was kind of implying when I was talking about how, like, hey, the classic Genesis games don't have vocal themes either, right? I feel like a big part of this game is, like, inspired by the classic Genesis games. Like, the design ethos that went into it. I feel like after Sonic Generations, Sonic Team were like, man, those old Genesis games were pretty fucking awesome, weren't they? Like, they were in that mode. And when what would it... I feel like the design philosophy behind this game is sort of trying to see what it would be like to make those classic Genesis games in 3D. Like, take classic Sonic's levels from Sonic Generations and turn the camera, right? So we're looking at it from a 3D perspective. But they are still, like, in structure and layout, they're still classic 2D levels, but we're seeing them from Sonic's back instead of from his side. And to that effect, like, they brought back the classic-ass Badniks, and they changed the control scheme. You've probably already noticed that. We are not with boost to win gameplay in this game. This is a very different kind of gameplay compared to what we had in Generations and Colors. And to me, it feels like an attempt to translate the classic Genesis style of controls to a 3D style. Like, what would those old Genesis games play like if they were played from a third dimension perspective? And actually, in a lot of ways, this game feels like a Mario game, which I guess is appropriate since we gotta kind of get into, hey, it's a modern Sonic game, and you've probably heard people talk about it. It's not a game that people pretend doesn't exist like they do with Generations and Colors. This is a game that people view derisively, and one of the things they said before this game came out was, oh, it's a ripoff of Sonic of Mario Galaxy. Because of the cylindrical shaped, like, landscapes and how we're jumping between them from cylindrical landscape to cylindrical landscape. So people are going, oh, it's a ripoff of Mario Galaxy. I keep almost saying Sonic Galaxy. Because Mario Galaxy was a ripoff of those levels from Sonic Adventure 2. But yeah, that's what people said, like, oh, it's a ripoff of Mario Galaxy. But I guess I can't really poo-poo that too much, because this game actually does kind of play and remind me a lot of a Mario game. But not a 3D Mario game, which is kind of funny. It actually reminds me a lot of 2D Mario games. Because as you can see, we're walking around, and we're just walking. Just at a brisk pace, but we are walking, and you have to hold down a button if you want to run. Oh god, I fucked that up. Like, there's literally a run button, which is also another derisive thing people say against the game. Oh, Sonic game has a run button. You have to hold down the button to run. Like, yeah, it's a platform. Like, it's emphasizing platforming. That's what it's going for. It's not being like a super speed-tastic, fantabulistic, like, pulse count. It's not doing the boost to win style of gameplay. It's very obviously and intentionally going for a more classical 16-bit era style of platforming gameplay, but it just so happens to be 3D and being played from a third-dimensional perspective. So, like, that's one of the things people say against this game to say it's bad, is the gameplay's different, and therefore, if it's different, it must be bad. Am I right? If it's not the same thing as what it was before, that means it's bad, right? Oh, boost to win style gameplay is so bad, you're just holding down one button to win. Okay, let's change it up. Let's experiment with a new style of gameplay then. Oh, it's different. It's a weird, different kind of gameplay. It's bad because it's different. I do not get these people sometimes. So, just like the Genesis games, the level ends when you pop a capsule. I'm presuming that that's the capsule that they were chasing in the opening cutscene. I love how that's our setup, by the way. They're just chasing Robotnik down. I'm even calling him Robotnik because I get such a feeling of, like, classic Genesis game from this. They're chasing him down because Robotnik's kidnapping our animal friends. Let's chase him down and save our animal buddies. Like, really, you can't get more simple than that. That is the Genesis game's setup.
Take it easy there.
Oh, stay calm, little little guy. Sonic and Tails
Yeah.
got your buddies back.
These are all the...
Did you get those animals back from Eggman?
If you notice, those are all the classic animal buddies from the Genesis games, too.
Wait a minute, just the one? Weak. I would have gotten them all back by now.
Save the rest of them.
Ah, look, they're kidnapping him.
Think what Eggman's
Ah!
I'm on it.
Okay, there's gonna be another cutscene, but, like, put a pin in that, because we're gonna talk about Sonic and Amy real quick. For like 10 minutes of a pre-recorded thing, because I wanted to get my thoughts together and I wasn't sure if I would remember what I wanted to talk about when I actually sat down and started recording. But first, these are DLCs. No, god damn it! Fuck! I didn't mean to no! Stop! I don't care! Help me! Okay. So these are DLC stages. Knight's classic Sega game stage, Yoshi's Island stage, and Zelda stage. We're not going to do those yet. First, I want to talk about, like, it's all the classic little animal buddies from the Genesis games, and a gameplay mechanic in this game is save the animal buddies, which is great. And once again, I want to point out, just like how I talked about in Sonic Heroes a little bit, there's no difference between Sonic and his friends and the little animal buddies. They're both animals. Just saying. I feel like this game lends credence to that. Yeah, a little factory line where we're showing the little animal buddies and the badniks. Oh, it's so cool. I love it. Once we're going back to powering the badniks with little animal buddies. We have gotten away from that in the last couple games, where they just have nothing in them or whatever. Like, we've completely ignored that. But now, yeah, once again, we're going back to the little animals and badniks. We'll talk about this bro later. For now, Sonic and Amy.
Once the little hedgehog destroyed.
There's a lot of funny background comedy moments. If you saw just then, Orbot got picked up by the assembly line claw. So keep your eye on the background. There's actually a lot of little funny background instances in this game.
Win or lose, I learned something about our enemy.
Okay, hopefully I'll have enough time here. It's kind of funny to see Sonic and Amy, talking about, the mission in this game. They're talking to each other like support characters about what the object of the game is. Just, normally. Like how in Sonic Colors, when Tails is like, I'll be the navigator. That's sort of what that conversation is like, where they're just casually talking to each other about, okay, this is what the situation is. We're giving you an update on the mission. You gotta get out there and do the thing. And he's like, gotcha, Roger. And that's just funny to me to see them interacting that way because it's Sonic and Amy. And that's kind of where their relationship is at this point. Where they can talk to each other that way now. Because, that's not what you expect from the way they would usually interact with each other. From, kind of the stereotype where she's, trying to bounce on that blue dick, and he's like, nah, son, none of that. But, that's the reason that I like as a Son Amy, OTP, but, that's why I like that that's where they're at now, because we've seen how it's developed. Because that's sort of a question that gets brought up a lot, is, what are Sonic's feelings towards Amy? I mean, we know what Amy's feelings towards Sonic are, or do we? But, the stereotype, sort of, is always that Sonic don't want none of that, fuck off, thought. Ew, I'm not interested. But I think by this point, that question's a little bit more... I think it's gone beyond the point of, does he not like her, or what's the deal there? I think it's more that, by this point, they've reached a point where they can... It's trust each other, sort of.
not necessarily, like, that might not be the most accurate word, but you kind of get what I mean, where, like, Sonic trusts that Amy is going to be forward with her feelings, and Amy trusts that Sonic is going to kind of reject her advancements. But they've reached a point where they can just be, like, comrades. You know, they can work together. There's no complicated question to it now, and I think, like, to me, it always comes off like he's sort of embarrassed by the idea of being in a relationship, you know? Because Sonic, from the beginning, is like a too cool for school kind of character. That was the entire idea behind his inception as the anti-Mario, where Mario is trying to save the princess, and Sonic's just too cool for that. Like, saving princesses, getting into relationships, getting a kiss as a reward, that's for squares, yo. I'm fucking Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm a totally cool, radical guy. I ain't got time to be tied down in some kind of weird relationship. I live my own way for myself. And can't have some chick around cramping my style, you know? So from his perspective, that's like the foundation of his character, so obviously it makes sense that Amy's coming around being like, yo, I want to get with it. And he's like, nah, son, that ain't what I'm all about. But that doesn't mean, like, he doesn't like her back, necessarily. It just means that I don't have room in my life for a relationship. I talked about in the adventure playthrough, like, being in a relationship with someone necessarily means that you have to make compromises for the sake of the person that you're with. And Sonic don't make no compromises. He, like, lives purely for himself. That's kind of the whole situation. So, like, you could interpret it in a way as him being, like, kind of embarrassed of his own feelings. I mean, when you have a character whose entire, like, raison d'etre is, oh, I gotta be the cool guy, kind of, like, admitting or being perceived as being in a relationship or liking a girl would be like, nope, gotta deny that. That's embarrassing. It sort of almost feels like, you know how in a teen movie where the kids go into high school for the first time, and they're like, okay, just drop me off at the corner here, and the parents are like, no, what are you talking about? I'm gonna drive you up to the front, give you a kiss on the cheek, okay, have a great first day. And the kid's like, you're embarrassing me. That's a weird comparison, but it sort of feels like that's kind of how Sonic views their quote-unquote relationship, or the possibility of a relationship between them, where he's like, come on, girl, fucking slow your roll, you're embarrassing me here, when she's coming on to him like that. And that's part of what makes Amy such a great character, because, and especially in regards to how they've reached that equilibrium now in the series, because like, Amy has never been embarrassed of her feelings or how people perceive her. She's always been, like, open and loud and proud and shameless, to a degree, shameless when it comes to expressing herself. And it's not just her, like, it's not just that she's goo goo gaga over Sonic. She's 110% about everything. When she's like, oh, I like me some Sonic, she's like really 110% about that. When she's mad, she's 110% about that and fucking crashing her hammer around. When she's sad, she's 110% about that. She starts bawling and screaming her eyes out with big fucking anime gushing tears flowing down her face. That's just the kind of person she is. She's completely open and herself about everything. And that goes back to how it's, like, the anti-Mario kind of design decisions come into it, because she's the anti-Peach. Like, whereas Peach is the damsel in distress, the demure, quiet princess with regality and elegance, and is, like, a reserved but royal presence, Amy is completely the opposite. For one thing, she ain't no one's damsel, and the only person who's in distress is the motherfuckers who getting in her way. She's loud, she's... sometimes you could even describe her as obnoxious. She's rough and tumble, but not to the point of being a tomboy. She's strong, but still feminine. She's boisterous, but wholesome. And that's kind of what's great about her. That's why I like Amy. That's why I like their relationship. Again, it's on Amy, OTP. And that's been to a degree, has been one of the most satisfying things about being with this series for so long and watching how their relationship has developed throughout the series. Seeing how it's gone from where it was in the adventure games, where Sonic was literally running away from her perspective, and seeing how it's gone from game to game to being where it's at now. And I've always been a little bit of a romantic, so like those like couple subplots, like Amazing World of Gumball, Penny and Gumball getting together has been one of my favorite subplots about that show. Same thing. Seeing how they've gone from like awkward fangirl crush stage to where it's at now, where, if you remember, aside from Generations, the last time we've seen Amy, Sonic was going, yeah, let's go out once all this is said and done. That was the last real interaction they had together. Just saying, nothing about what we've seen since then has nullified that dialogue choice. So that's why it's really funny seeing them being like, okay, you know, let's talk about what's going on and how they're going to interact again later on. They've reached a point where they're like, okay, we're on equal terms here. Like, I know what you want and you know what I'm all about, and we can coexist. And whatever they're doing off screen is whatever they're doing off screen, but
We begin to tangle after all! It's beat-down time! Taking hedgehog! You were lucky this time!
Forgot how short these levels were. I thought I would have more time to talk about this stuff. Oh no. Help me. I thought I would have more time to talk about this stuff because I don't want to talk over cutscenes. But there's actually, like, you get cutscenes pretty much every level or after every level, before or after every level in this game. And I wanted to take the time to talk about Amy and Sonic, because that is kind of important. Like, stuff about the relationship does come up in this game, but she doesn't actually have a lot of screen time. So I'm, like, extrapolating a lot based on very little information. But I still felt like it was important to talk about. But also, you got the chance to see, like, oh, hey, look, you can really speed through these levels. And that's one of the core strengths of this game, is you should see the stuff that speedrunners do with these levels. It's pretty fucking amazing. Like, damn. Like, speedrunners can literally just skip, like, entire sections of these levels. It's pretty bananas. And that's one of the, like, best features of the game, is there's actually a really high skill ceiling to the way this game plays. There's a really low skill floor. But I feel like that's kind of one of the flaws against the game too, is there's a very low skill floor. So, you know, anyone can kind of play this game and get through it. It doesn't take a lot of skill to jump in and start playing it. And I feel like maybe the boost to win gameplay might be a little high in demand in terms of how accessible the skill floor is. So I feel like that might have contributed to part of why they decided to switch it up and try experimenting with a different style of gameplay. Because, I mean, the Sonic games are for kids. He's a children's, like, franchise character. So having a style of gameplay that a little baby child could play sufficiently and without any trouble is kind of important. And I feel like you... Although it does kind of ramp up in challenge near the end of the game. But, like, a little kid could play this game and be like, yeah, I'm playing Sonic. But it also has a really high skill ceiling. So, if you actually put the time in to learn how this game plays and master all of its, like, nuances, you can just fucking poke holes through this game. And I think that's really cool. But that also does kind of mean, like, you have... the in-between isn't so great. Like, you have a low-skill floor and a high-skill ceiling, but, like, the elevator stops in between aren't really all that impressive. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're an intermediate player, and you're not, like, a child, and you have motor skills, and you can actually, like, play the game proficiently, but you're not, like, a crazy, like, oh, I'm gonna play this game and, like, really fucking dig into it and figure it out. Look at the little animal buddies freaking out inside the capsule. That's so cute. I'll save you, little animal buddies. Oh, God. Then, like, there's a lot of mechanics that this game has that it doesn't do a very good job of teaching you. So you can go through this game and really never really figure out how the parkour system works, which is that system where we're running on the walls like this. The game never really explains to you how this works, so you can go through the whole game never really wrapping your mind around it. And the spin dash also has kind of a lot to it that the game doesn't really explain to you. The game never explains to you that you can hold down the spin dash button and jump, and you can just start rocketing through like that. It never tells you that you can press the jump button to charge up your spin dash. You think, oh, I'm just gonna hold down the spin dash button and charge it up that way, but you can press the jump button and that, like, increases how much charge your spin dash is gonna get. There we go. Come on. There we go. Oh, goodness gracious. So I feel like that might be a little bit of the reason that people kind of come away from how this game plays its controls negatively, because it would be one thing if it was just different, because it is, but it's also a little bit more it's kind of too simple and at the same time too complex and in-depth for its own good. So players who are just kind of in the middle come away feeling a little bit dissatisfied by it because they don't get into how deep and layered the shit you can do with these controls can get, but they're too advanced to appreciate how simple and approachable and easy to play for, like, a regular, like, the demographic this game is being aimed at is. So, like, people come away negatively from this game, but unlike Colors, I feel like, okay, there are actual valid complaints against it. There are flaws, there are nitpicks you can say, like, this is why I don't like the game, and I'd be like, yeah, that's totally fair. But those valid flaws are not the reasons that I always hear people say are the reason this game is bad, as usual. So we'll be getting into that. Aw, man, I didn't even have to replay it, man. I didn't even have to replay those old levels. I could have just done that level. Shit. I haven't played this game a lot, so I don't necessarily remember which levels have story at the beginning and end of them. Damn it, I really wish I hadn't turned that off. Turn that on.